This video is called Should We Care What People Who Are Playing Stupid Pretend to Think and or Take the Time to Say? So I'm going to explore the different categories of people and what they think and what it says about insight and education and who's living in reality and who's kind of, believing the smoke and mirrors and the facade and the lies and the propaganda, and what it says about society and what it says about these people. Well, first, there are some categories that, that I'm not going to consider. One is babies, obviously. There's no reason to think about what they think about it, right? And then teenagers and younger, okay? I'm only going to be talking about adults because there are a few exceptions in the 18 and younger range. They just don't know what to think. It's like asking them, how does it feel to be an adult? You may as well be asking them that. They really just don't know. They're very brainwashed. They don't know what to think. They're distracted by the news and sports and, school life and being a teenager and what have you. Of course, there are exceptions, but there's so few that I'm not going to touch on. The categories that I am going to touch on, which at this point, I'm supposed to make percentages before I make this video, but I'm just going to throw out percentages in this video. The first one is honestly do not believe me. Okay, they're not playing stupid. They honestly do not believe. The second category is does not know what to think about it. They haven't made up their mind one way or another. Oh, by the way, these are also in the order of least insightful to most insightful. The next category is they know because they've heard of MK Ultra and have some familiarity with conspiracy theory and, the system's errors and, Watergate and Iran-Contra. There's some familiarity with these things. They haven't truly explored them, but they believe because they kind of know how it is. They'll say things like, I know how it is, but a lot of these people who say that fall in this category. Now, obviously, in every category, there's exceptions to the rules. By some weird twist of fate, you could find somebody who's very insightful and intelligent who isn't smart enough to see that I'm not the type of person to make this up, or I'm not a crazy person. And, they might fall in the first category. Anyway, the next category, the second most insightful category. People who are part of the system who know this because, when I say they're, this is generally speaking. Obviously, some people who are part of the system are complete fucking idiots. If they weren't told this was how it works, they would have no clue. Okay? So this is, their insight is based on being carried by other people. Other people have taught them what to look for. Therefore, when this insight pertains to politics, specifically, and psychops specifically. Okay, they might not be too insightful when it comes to other things. They've been told these things. They're in the know because they've been put on the game, as they say. Okay, the most insightful people are people who have studied the system, truly reflected on what they have learned, and have come to the conclusion, without any help, that I am right because of a long list of detailed, insightful, perhaps intuitive reasons, a higher deductive reasoning, a higher level of critical thinking. So, how does this break down, I mean, I won't say that your guess is as good as mine, but some notes I've made to help me, figure this out is about 1% of America is Muslim, about 76% are Christian, 2 to 3% are gay, 30 million atheists, which means it's somewhere 8 to 10% or something like that, right? Okay, so you got to consider what these people believe and what led them to believe this in the first place, and what does their schools of thought generally allow them to believe? Well, since most people are from one Abrahamic faith or another, they do believe in oppression. They do believe in the persecution of political dissidents. So I would say that the smallest percentage falls in the category of honestly do not believe, because of what people believe in society. They believe that this system persecutes people just like me. They're not stupid. They know black people are persecuted. They know political dissidents, at least to some extent, are persecuted. And they know that religiously convicted people are alienated by society and are persecuted by some elements of society on some level. So what percent of people would see my videos and honestly, not playing stupid, not clouded by, petty things to the point where they decided to play stupid, but honestly do not believe because they're assimilated to the extreme, because they believe the system and the propaganda and, so on and so forth. Well, I would say this is less than 10%. Okay? Ironically, I think the percent lines up with atheists, though I do not believe that all these people are atheists. I think that it's around 8 to 10% of people would see my videos and say, you know what, this guy's crazy, or he's making it up. And the vast majority of the people who do not believe would be people who think that I have a mental illness or that I'm crazy. Okay? Another title of this video, should we care about people who are that stupid and that assimilated? Well, I'll get to that later. So then we come to the category of do not know. How many people would come to the conclusion that I don't know what to think of this guy? I think we're looking at another 8 to 10% here. I think that about as many people who jump to the conclusion that they honestly don't believe me, would jump to the conclusion that they don't know, or would come to the conclusion that they do not know, which is more rational. Because when you look at the first category, they're very, very stupid. In a country where MKUltra, COINTELPRO, the Phoenix program, the Monarch program, and almost all of these programs except for the Phoenix program, all these programs except for the Phoenix program were centered in the Bay Area in California. Okay? The Panthers in Oakland, MKUltra, really took place mostly in San Francisco and universities and so on. So, the people who do not believe are extremely out of touch. Those people probably should lose their right to vote, because it's pretty dramatic how stupid they would have to be to jump to the conclusion that they do not believe. Now, the people who do not know, that's understandable. Because when you come across someone like me, you say, well, I don't know what to think of this guy. He doesn't come off as fucking crazy like the homeless people you see in the streets, just nuts and just lost it and don't take care of themselves. And, his room is sort of in order. He just comes off as a political dissident. He's angry, but yeah, it's culturally and socially normative for black people to be angry. So I don't know what to think of these people. They're still pretty stupid, but they're not complete idiots. They're perhaps taking the most scientific approach, but they lack insight to realize that they have everything they need to come to the conclusion that I am being covertly drugged, because there's an overwhelming amount of evidence to that effect. So to not lean toward I'm being drugged, or to not come to that conclusion first and foremost until proven otherwise, is a very ignorant position to take. It's pretty much as bad as questioning whether or not you exist, because you're taking an extremely neutral point of view that, well, I don't know for sure, but the logical thing is to assume that you do before you say you don't know. If you see what I'm saying, a lot of you might struggle with that. You might say, well, why is that? And I don't want to explore that anymore, But there is arguments that can be made as to why I'm wrong about that idea, about existence. But again, this is, I don't want to go into that realm of philosophy and theology and what have you. So the next category is they know because they have heard of MKUltra or something to that effect. Now, I believe that we are looking at about 40 to 50% of people, okay, are in this category. They believe me. Almost half of all the people who see my videos, in their honest opinion, not what they will say, not playing stupid, whether or not they play stupid, but what they honestly believe. I believe about half people would believe me specifically for that reason. Now the next, the ones who are part of the system, and they know how it works. There's a lot of law enforcement, there's a lot of intelligence agencies who are familiar with the Code of Silence, who are familiar with these sorts of programs. There's a lot of secret society people, not all of them, but a lot of them, the majority perhaps, who are familiar with these programs, who, because they're a part of the system. So with that one, I probably would throw out another 8 to 10%. Okay, and the last one, the most insightful people, I'd say they're about 20+%, whatever the remainder is. Because I threw out 8 to 10% in different, these are all estimates. So yes, I'd say about, so when you truly break it down, the vast majority, about 80% of people who come across my videos and hear my story, logically, based on me studying sociology, all my interviews with people, my studies on women, and all my studies, and all the valid sources and all the statistics I've seen, and just talking to people over the years about conspiracy theory and so on, I'd say about 80% would honestly believe me, okay? But I think that at least half would either not believe me or play stupid about it because they think it's in their best interest, okay? And that would definitely cover the people who are the part of the system, okay? It would also cover some of the people who have some familiarity with the system and MK Ultra and so on. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm saying. So then it leads me back, almost out of time. So let me just wrap this up. There's two questions. One, should we care what people who are playing stupid pretend to think and or take the time to say? And two, should we care about the people who honestly do not believe? Now, I would say yes, we should care about what the people who honestly do not believe think, and that is part of why I've taken a great amount of time for this. So arguably, I have taken a lot of time to convince the don't knows, convince the people who jump to the conclusion that I must be lying or crazy, and to educate the other categories as to why I am right to take the stance that I have and give them all the details they need to convince the others if they so choose. Now, in the less than 2 minutes, should we care what people who are playing stupid pretend to think and or take the time to say? No, we shouldn't. And why should we? We should care what they take the time to say, okay? But ultimately, we shouldn't care for the reason that, we can perhaps change these, we shouldn't let it affect us, okay? Because we're probably not going to be able to convince these people not to play stupid. It'll probably take everyone else pressuring them to not play stupid. I mean, the category that's not going to budge almost certainly without it seeming to be in their best interest because they're cowards, because they're bad people. Let's face it, they're bad, horrible, terrible, awful people. Horrible characters. Okay? They're not going to budge. Now, the people who honestly jump to the conclusion that they do not believe, they might be like, oh my goodness, you know what, he's right. But these people playing stupid, they're going to look for any reason to avoid conceding the point. Well, he could have did this. Well, he could have did that. When I have the interview with that female who says she was told to provoke me to the side, oh, he could have put her up to saying that. Like, they'll come up with ridiculous bitch shit that makes absolutely no sense when you truly look at it. Things that might have a 1% chance of being true, they'll jump to that as being a reason why, and they'll give themselves away as pretending to play stupid, not honestly not knowing, or not honestly not believing. Well, I'm out of time now. I hope that has clarified a lot of things. Thank you.